All right, I got 9 o'clock, everybody.
Yeah.
Good morning. Thank you all for showing up. We have anybody on the call this morning?
Nancy on the call.
Nancy, awesome. Well, let's get this thing started here. First up, we're gonna look at the minutes from last month and review those, if you will. And if there's any changes, we'll entertain a motion to amend the minutes
Amend or approve?
or whatever.
A motion to approve.
Second. I wasn't
All
here.
right. Thank you.
All in favor?
What's that?
All in favor?
Aye, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
There we go. I'm a little rusty. Old business, community character, projects, discuss. What do we got?
So what I've just got kind of an update on the projects that we've been working on, and I want to kind of talk now that we've kind of Seventh Avenue events kind of more or less coming together where there's not going to be many items that we'll have to talk about that. Oh, hey, Diane.
Hey. Actually made it. I'll share.
Yeah, we got extras. About
No, I got mine.
We're gonna talk.
now that we're kind of getting the Seventh Avenue event itself coming together, having this committee really focusing on the public art side of things is probably a good direction to go. So let's kind of have that open on if the separate public art group needs to continue to meet, or if it should just be like in this committee itself rather than having a separate meeting. So have that as an open on the public art, but kind of want to bring that up and see if there's any thoughts on it. And
Actually,
I can share. I don't have an extra copy on.
I definitely want to let him have, here, either, there you go. I know, I actually would like to contribute to that. I think it's a good idea to do it here. But as a subcommittee, A, it's been difficult to get together. B, we've done some preliminary work. Kristen did the work on comparing similarities and differences with some art policies elsewhere. And we were all offered or tasked if we wanted to or could do it, which of course over Christmas, Helene, art galleries trying to get back open and everything else. And it's been difficult for us to get together as a group. But the interesting thing is that a lot of this is staff driven, truthfully, which I recently sat down and looked at a number of the different cities, particularly looking at Charlotte a bit, looked at Greenville, looked briefly at the Florida. I have notes. What's the name? One of
Coral Gables.
Coral Gable. Oh, well, that wasn't what I looked at. I think I looked at another city in Florida, but anyway. And I found a lot of similarities in them and obviously some differences. But then coincidentally, this was just by accident, but I ran into Diane yesterday and told her I had already contacted a friend of mine who I mentioned at, I think, the Downtown Advisory Board, who her name's Susan Perry. She has multiple master's degrees. She's an art expert. She was the executive director of the Southeast Museum Conference, which was all the museums in the Southeast. She has been involved with for 10 years with the public art in Charlotte. She helped create the public art policy in Charlotte. She chaired a Save Outdoor Sculpture Committee for Charlotte. She knows a lot of the good and bad experience dealing with public art. And she is a resource who I'm sure would be more than willing to come. And she's North Carolina. She actually lives in upstate South Carolina, but we talked about it, and I was trying to figure out, we're kind of flummoxed I think, as a subcommittee that, we're really just going to set up what you guys have to do.
Yeah.
And she would actually suggest, and she gave me the name of, a field trip to Charlotte, for instance. And I'm not saying because we want to do art like them, but the policies, how they go about doing it. But the big gist is that there's certain things you have to do. You have to come up with a source for funding. You have to identify public places where art could eventually be. You have to create some kind of arts commissioner, board of commissioners, commissioners. I'm having a hard time with that talking. And made up of not just business owners or gallery owners or artists, but community, the community, whether the diversity of the community, but people willing to be a part of something that is only going to enhance and add to what we already have here in Hendersonville. And it should be art, if it's public art, it's art that should appeal to the people. And not just the residents, but, anybody who wants to come to Hendersonville, which is always a vague thing in some cases, because all of us have, art is in the eye of the beholder or whatever, what you like and what you don't like. But, and it's not just statues, for instance, it's gardens. And in gardens, you can put public art. We already do a pretty good job with what we have for public art. The Artscape banners, which works with, already have nonprofits that working with the city, working to put these banners out for a year, and it promotes all the art and artists that we have in the community. Even our bears, our barefoot and bears are definitely public art, and that one is a moving system, and we all benefit from that at nonprofits and the city's nonprofit. We have murals, we're already a mural city. The other thing is we already have some existing sculpture. We have that tree, which I really love, but it's kind of missed because people turn before they see that in a lot of cases, or just don't get that far up. And we have the tiger. Is there a plaque by the tiger?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good. But public art, whatever we do can change and improve or cause problems in the city. But the other option too with public art is covering electric boxes. I mean, there's all kinds of opportunities, but the staff, I think, has to help put together something. And then we need of what, like I said, funding, location, a commission. And you have to have city council in on this and some
Community input.
well, and yes, I haven't, yeah, we have to have a forums for what the city would like to see, what the people who come to Hendersonville, anyone's invited to those public forums, I'm sure, but so even though we've tried to come up with something after doing all this research and there's interesting things. Oh, and the other thing is the maintenance. You actually have to have a staff person whose job it is, along with whatever other multi-jobs they have, to maintain what we already have out there and what we will eventually get out there. And the other thing on top of all that is the Friends of Downtown is a 501c3. You as a 501, the Downtown Friends is a 501c3 can write for grants for purchasing public art. So, after looking at all of this, it just seems like, this committee, if we want to think it over, I'm happy to kind of summarize notes as much as possible. Can come up what we think the city needs to do. And if we want to go do a field trip, to Brevard, which is close by. And again, it's not to do necessarily the art they have, it's just how they do the art. But Charlotte has been doing this for a long time. And one other interesting conversation we had with Susan is, for instance, in Charlotte, a lot of the public art was paid for with private funds. And sometimes on business buildings that are owned by those that paid for it. The Bank of America chair would put mosaics all over the city, which was what he liked. And I guess he put it on buildings that he had access to. I don't know, because I haven't toured it all. But she said you have to be careful about that. It's great, I think, if there's willing individuals who want to fund a piece of art or give a grant, which then would go through, Friends of Downtown. That's another aspect you have to look at. So funding, maybe grant writing, maybe setting up a fund where individuals could donate, public meetings, a commission, and public locations. So after doing all of this, I think it's better if we come up with something to send to downtown as a subcommittee whole but I don't know what other people who are on our committee think.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I thought was kind of what the process was more or less going to be, because I mean, I know that eventually it's going to be staff driven, but really having the committee kind of thinking through, because it will be like a commission or committee members that are kind of going through that process or anything. And we've got locations that, because in the streetscape plan, all of the round planters on Main Street are locations for public art pieces. So we've got locations that they could be possible for. And so kind of having that as, that could be kind of a first step process for it, because having that plan put together then will allow us to apply for money or funding for it. And then, we still, at some point or another, we will have some conversations about the fountain too.
I thought we already did.
I-
That's fun. I thought we know what that conversation was.
Yeah, and we do, but there are actual like physical issues with the copper of the mountain there. So there will be, so right now, we're just looking at talking to the fountain people who operate the actual, or who put together the actual water feature fountain part, to then see how we can keep the water feature part, but then probably coming back to this group or some other, whatever this public art entity becomes, how to update that.
Does
Oh.
citizens want to donate something since they're,
Yeah.
Do they own that? Who owns
No,
that?
the city owns it. So that's kind of a topic that would be coming to like, so having this policy sort of in place for helping in that process will be helpful. So,
Not to stoke the fire here, but the artist. Is there, like with, if you're talking about like replacing that,
mhm.
what's the sensitivity there with the artist? Is there any issues there that need to be tactically addressed?
I'm not really sure everything at this point. I just know that like
Oh, you mean that particular artist?
yeah, I'm not sure. I just know that the physical copper that's on the fountain is going to become a safety hazard to where it's gonna have to,
I don't think there's, once you own the piece, you can put it where you want to, realizing you can't make copies of it and sell it.
yeah,
Because that's all propriety,
yeah, I don't think.
property of the
Yeah.
artist. But
There might be some donor, like, there's a lot of conversations that'll have to be had on it, but because there's a physical safety
Mhm.
hazard potentially with it, then I think that there'd probably be some pretty justified.
And since you mentioned artists, that's another thing that is in art policy. Because you can have a call for, let's say, ideas for this spot in town. And there's a process you can go through with artists to submit applications, and then that commission would help review it. But then, of course, it would be helpful to see what the interest is in raising monies that would go to specifically to an art fund
Yeah,
to pay for something like that.
Mhm.
So,
There's also one process that's being used around not just North Carolina. Artists are contributing at cost pieces that then become saleable
oh, yeah, mhm,
and portable.
yeah,
So even if they don't sell, they move them
yeah, mhm,
from one location
Yeah, I've
to
seen
another.
some of them done that.
All you have are logistics and
Mhm.
and installation costs and the material cost basically
Mhm.
for those significantly impacts the cost of putting the art in place.
mhm.
And you get a rotation of work.
Yeah,
There's a lot of artists that do the rotation throughout the cities. They just move them from city to city and they have a rotation program that does that.
and there are art that are just put up for a month, like.
yeah, there's
installation.
installation.
Like umbrellas hanging in an alley, which is another part of it.
Yeah, you could do all kinds of short terms.
The stick guy that does the huge sculptures that last for about a month.
I mean, we've always talked about, all kinds of things that we can do and we can put up, but the thing is that we need to come up with the policy first. And that's what we've been trying to do, and we haven't really gotten to that point. And I know that we've talked a lot about, and I know you said about this Susan's lady, and I mean, if she wants to come, or do we want to incorporate the Charlotte, the Brevard and the Coral Gables, the three? Actually, I don't know if, I didn't look at Charlotte. Have you looked at Charlotte? I mean, I did. It's just a friend of mine.
Oh, yeah, I think that's-
She's a book of knowledge, so.
Yeah. That's great.
One of the interesting things in the conversation was that these people have made mistakes.
Mhm.
And so talking
We're gonna do
to
it.
everyone that, has done this to see what went.
Us from making the same ones.
One of the mistakes which you sort of alluded to was this mosaics that this
It
individual.
wasn't a mistake. It was
But it
one person who decided what the public art was.
And
and
it
he
wasn't
paid
in
for it.
line with what they would have preferred, but they were forced to basically install it. And there were members of the community that were very unhappy, and then they had issues. And I think we have more variations
yeah.
in our community segments. And Charlotte is more of a urban city, so we have even more opportunities to possibly offend people. if we
And,
don't
and
do
I
that.
did not know, I'm not sure about the history of that, if he did that before they went, uh-oh, we need an art policy. I'm not sure, because I don't know how long ago that was. But yes, her point, Susan's, was it was one person putting what they wanted because they paid for it. And I'm assuming it was on private property, and the city didn't have anything to do with it.
And she
But it may have
referred
got
to private businesses
wanting to. do
wanting
it.
to control what kind of art went anywhere near them, and that caused issues.
Well,
And the other.
that ties into, this group,
Mhm,
Mhm.
the board,
mhm.
right? Establishing that there are controls
Right.
in place, even on private property. If you're in the district or
If it's zoned.
city limits or whatever,
Mhm.
even if a private funder comes in and says, well, it's my building and I'm gonna paint it, all right, there has to be oversight and back by,
Well, and actually,
Other
the
committee.
other thing I read was that you incorporate planning and zoning into this. So that if the city council adopts zoning regulations, because, it's tricky, is that we all know private property, trying to tell them what they can do.
Yeah.
Unless it's specifically zoned that you can
Okay.
only do A, B, and C. And that there's a review committee, which would be your art commissioners or whatever.
And art is a pretty tricky thing as far as on private
Mhm.
property. There's
But you could,
Supreme Court cases and stuff on that.
the other part of the policy is some of the funding, like we have municipal service districts and whatnot that have a specific tax that are historic districts that just stay in that district.
Mhm.
We could create an overall Seventh Avenue, Main Street, because that's our downtown mostly, as far as what we've been trying to enhance,
Mhm.
where there's some small, either tourist tax on something, I don't know, obviously we can't take it from parking because we still have 20 years of parking to pay for.
Yeah.
But if there was 1.5% of 1% of something or other, that's something else the city
Yeah.
council could look at.
And that could be a
Zoning definitely.
deep type of thing that could, I mean, it wouldn't be much for a while, because I think for Main Street, 1 cent will generate, I think it's like $11,000. But that could be, if that's something that the board and everyone feels good about, that's definitely something that could be a part of the policy of a recommendation for it, to where it's kind of put into a.
And I still
Fun.
think you could see fundraising.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Among nonprofits. And I know that Diane is an expert on grant writing because she does it for the Art League. And I don't know, Arts Council has a staff director, what's her?
Mel.
Executive director. Yeah.
She's really good at that too.
And I'm sure there are other people who do that. So
So
tell someone else not to have to do it.
So as far as for next steps then, and how the subcommittee versus this whole, the community character committee goes, what are the next steps, and is there steps where I need to step in at this point, or what's the?
So there's a meeting scheduled for next Tuesday. We always have it the second Tuesday of the month unless something comes.
We
up.
don't have a
And then-
agenda, do we? Do we have anything?
Well, we decided at the last meeting that we would look over the two pieces and bring any kind of conversation or anything to that. And then I sent out an email this morning to remind them and also put in the two, links to those two. I didn't do Charlotte, but I did the Coral Gables and the Bavard, and I printed copies out to have at the meeting so that we can kind of go through that and just say, we want, or if I suggested if the members of the meeting would look over it and have notes as to what they think should still stay in, any of those should be removed, whether we think this is, you know, what, because I mean, we don't want to rewrite something from the very beginning. So it's just a matter of taking one or two that we've liked or seen that we've liked and putting them together. And I said that I hoped we could get it done so we could bring it to the community character meeting by March, by you guys' our March meeting, to let everybody in this thing look over it and see if they thought that it was a good, fit.
Well, how about instead of us doing that as a subcommittee, we just jump right in and do it as community character?
We can do that. It was just, we decided on a smaller committee because it would be easier on a smaller committee to do those things, but we can do it either way.
Yeah, yeah, so that all works. And also if you're already planning on having this one Tuesday, that's up to y'all and kind of get that combined, and then you can get that to me and then I can kind of.
Do you know if
Together and.
I mean, personally, considering the expertise in this firm that I do not have, I would appreciate that, even just like, not an ongoing thing, but having that input from a distilled group of people that really know what they're talking about.
But it's the same, it's more or less the same people.
it is,
there's
it's not,
nobody-
we're all in the same boat. We all know that it would be most helpful to review other cities'
Mhm.
art policies. But I think it can reach, you know, and just some of the notes, and some of the discussions, it might as well just come to this committee and be the subcommittee for, or the committee for. And plus personally, I think you've taken away some of our function by removing the grant program and for facades, but right now, the Seventh Avenue is pretty well set, and whatever reports need to, or whatever this committee can help with the plans for Seventh Avenue, we're still here for that, but the only other thing we're doing now is public art policy, which is important.
I mean, yeah, I feel like having that as a focus for this makes sense for the community character, public space type of thing. But if it needs to have subgroups that are kind of spending some time extra in the meantime, if it's necessary, kind of like an ad hoc kind of thing.
I mean, for me, I think one of the things that's standing out to me is the importance of having oversight and review process to any public art. And even art that is on private property that would be considered public art because of exposure.
Yeah.
That to me is like having that and having people and actually looking at these projects and saying yay or nay. I think that maybe, you know, having like a broader mission statement from us about like the general idea of the kind of public art that we would like to see, what direction we'd like to go in, you know, I mean, for me, again, it's about diversity, especially, I mean, Main Street, but especially now on Seventh Avenue, because you have no public art on Seventh Avenue. I mean, you have some, but there's not much.
We do on Locust Street, and I was gonna mention, if you guys don't mind.
It,
We
Yes.
had a lot of controversy with the old lab building applying for the grant and getting approved. And of course, now that they're not in that building. So one of the things I was gonna mention is if we wanted some control over what private individuals do, if they apply for some form of a grant and are approved, maybe we put something in that grant that
That has to stay
defines
there,
things, or
it can't
it
be moved.
defines it a little bit more and says, you know, this art is approved and has to remain in place for X period of time to be approved for this grant. And believe me, I'm trying my hardest with that and looking for a new tenant,
Mhm.
but it is.
they don't like the art?
It just depends what the business is. Most of them love the art, but some businesses and a bunch of flowers don't necessarily coincide. So depending on what.
No.
And there might
Depending on what you're doing, but so if we put something in a grant, like. Even if somebody applied, now if they're doing it personally with their own private money, that's a little bit
Yeah.
different, but in the. Situation of the Locust Street, and I think we all agreed maybe it's not a community character grant, maybe it goes into an art grant or something.
that would be this committee.
But we could put definitions on that then in regards to the grant, no matter how much money they got.
And Matt, you're exactly right. The public art policy and purpose should be a mission or vision statement, a purpose like add life, color, energy to a community, which I think the public art we have, while some of it's changed every year, it adds energy to the community. And definitely the commission, the city having review of whatever is proposed and any spot would be public. But you know, you walk a fine line when you're trying to control what someone does on private property, but if it.
Control that is really by providing.
If you provide grant money and
Yeah.
they take that, then you can put some restrictions on it, but
Right, right.
otherwise.
Even zoning can't really do a lot regarding public art unless there's
In
words.
private space.
Right.
Unless they're interpreted as signs.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that it would be a good idea to send out the Coral Gables,
Mhm.
Brevard, Charlotte. I don't know how big it is,
You can read it online.
but
I mean, I'm happy to send the
I've looked-
website and all
yeah,
that.
I've looked at 24, and they vary from, you know,
Yeah.
this to this.
Well, I think we start here and it grows to that.
We don't need this as a city
Yeah.
of, you know,
Yeah.
this number of people. And I also sent out an AI generated policy that can be adapted to any of them.
Mhm.
But I think at this point, we ought to send this out in distribution and just ask, yes, everybody here and on the committee. And ask them to take a swing at making notes. If they're interested and have time, they'll do it. If they don't, they won't. But we'll come back to the next meeting with actual feedback rather than waiting until then
Mhm.
to have some disjointed discussion. So I think that would be our step right now. I do believe that this needs to be pulled back in. So that's my suggestion. Now, sidebar, and this is for my own edification on something a little different, but still effective. I've missed a couple of meetings and I feel like I've been gone for 6 months. So what exactly is Community Character's mandate as of now with respect to grants and, right? What have we lost, you know, responsibility for?
So back in July or August, when we did our mission statement, vision statement with the board, we just split up that community character is public space. Economic vitality is private space, private property, business. So preservation, tax credits, economic vitality, because that supports businesses and property owners. So community character, public space, experience of outdoor space, and like, so streetscape, public art, outdoor experience, economic vitality, building business.
But facade grants kind of is a
Yeah, so
key area, because that sounds to me like community character.
Outdoor space.
I think you need, you know, a line.
Last year, when the facade grants got murky, we decided we really wanted it to go towards historic preservation, or we wanted to focus it on that rather than like a public art grant. And if somebody comes and wants a grant for the historic preservation grant and it falls under the purview of public space, we said it like, there's no problem just to kick it to this community.
Then where does property management ordinancing?
I think that would be an economic vitality, because that would fall in on the down, like the vacant building policy and things that are related to private property owners and private business. That's how I would see of making a cleaner split between the committees. And that was just, I brought that up just as looking at our public space versus buildings and private space. That's how I would see it.
It felt like we were being punished, honestly, but the lesson learned.
I don't feel good about it either.
Wait a minute, but the lesson learned was that we shouldn't probably ever do grants anymore for murals. Because that went
That
back,
has nothing to do with any of it.
well, you just said that it has to be more on the historic aspect of the buildings and not paying for what was
When we were talking
public
about
art.
streetscape,
Yeah,
that was the
so it was a lesson we learned after we did
Yeah,
it.
that, I didn't even think about that whenever I was suggesting to move it over. I was thinking about when we had like an hour plus long discussion on our mission and vision statement where we had this committee say that community character is the place, let's see, what did we? Downtown Hendersonville is the place to meander meaningfully, was the discussion in this group. And so things that are going on in individual private properties.
Where you meander
Past.
Past them. And to be truthful, in the past, I mean, I've been on this board, I missed a year, but for a while that there were a lot of times where people weren't comfortable giving grant money to repair private buildings, but the intention of that grant money was to repair the public front of buildings to maintain the, yes, thank you, facade, to maintain the look of our sweet little town. I mean, Seventh Avenue, Main Street, and then we determined back alleys of the Seventh Avenue and Main Street buildings. I mean, it was community character that had us really look at these grants. And then what I saw is, and I understand it, like when you came for your grant, which would have been the maximum amount for one building, that maybe there's concern about, you know, is there just maybe we have too much we want to give to one building, maybe, you know, we don't have the facade grant policy set up where you come in, we have a maximum amount. We don't have, well, we don't really want to give you the max because the next guy might come along. So which kind of,
Says up, depending on funds available. Let me just, so the Economic Vitality Subcommittee, their goal is downtown Hendersonville offers opportunities for authentic and diverse businesses to thrive. Facade grants are incentives for businesses. That's what they are for businesses and property owners.
That's what.
to improve the facade of their buildings so that it enhances the character.
Okay, so what? it can go either
And
ways.
and when we made that decision for the Bureau, we all acknowledged that it was a special case. It was timed just right where it wasn't gonna impact anybody in the future like you had. So we all said like, yeah, this is cool, this is fine. But it should be for this in the future and maybe let's refocus it towards that. It's not like a punishment that it was moved, like literally this committee was just getting crowded and economic vitality was kind of stagnant and it's like
Yeah.
delegated out of there more than anything.
Initially, the facade grant program, because it has changed. Initially, it was purely, I would say the intention was purely incentive for businesses or building property owners or business owners to improve something that needed improvement. You know what I mean? So that's why I keep throwing out the whole awning, the torn awning thing, you know, like awnings, everybody gets awnings, you know? So that is economic vitality, 100%. And I think, you know, now we've gotten a little bit more dialed in with historic preservation and working with them on it. But still, if you look at the program right now, how it's written, it really is economic vitality from basically improving one facade. There's ripple effect with the community. Yes, there's the public effect to that as well, but ultimately it is an incentive program for property owners that maybe have been sitting on their hands to do something with buildings that actually has a larger effect economically, I mean, visually, but also primarily economically for.
It's a time with historic.
We started building the database, so we get visibility of local businesses and what the properties are doing, if they're active or they've been sitting empty for years. I think I know that we're at a critical point in the city that a lot of buildings, vacant buildings, are not going to be actively sought to lease. they are being held as assets. And, you know, that becomes an initiative, whether it be economic vitality or the board as a whole, right? Has to come up with some recommendation for the city.
For public appearance of empty buildings.
Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah.
businesses in the.
No, it's,
But
I
business-
mean, I believe Brevard has a program now,
They do.
that they, you know, do not allow, regardless of ownership,
Commercial business.
they have to actively
Seek a tenant.
be tenant
Empty.
and without
The city does that.
the city,
Yep.
right? Because this type of infestation, right, is a death knell to downtown. Jane Answer isn't gonna lease.
They're taking the
It's,
facade off of it.
They're doing what?
They're gonna be taking the front facade off of it.
They got approval for that?
I was wrong. The historic preservation was just looking at windows. They're coming back on or it's already gotten staff approval to remove that front facade.
Those people aren't interested in selling that building. They just want to lease it.
But there is, they do have, hopefully.
they just wanna hold it.
They just want to hold it.
I actually approached someone to try to buy a building and was told that they have 23 buildings now because they bought Rubens.
That's right,
And they have no interest whatsoever in selling any of them.
that's right.
And I said, really? Nope, we have big plans. That's the words from one of the Lynch family members.
Well, the junk store on Seventh is in the same class.
Right.
Different owner there.
He's not gonna sell
Yep.
it. They're loving their money.
Well, miracles do happen. So, I mean, there are two properties on Seventh Avenue that were never going to be sold that got sold.
True.
You know, so I mean, it does, there's,
To Lyle?
Chicken.
Yes.
yeah, Chicken Shack and the bank building.
Lyle?
But neither one of those properties, I mean, they were gonna be held in the hands of the owners indefinitely.
The
And
Chicken Shack is that one that used to be available.
yeah, so I mean, there is
And
some hope, but
topics that would be appropriate for the economic vitality.
so just so I
The people here are on, or at least two of
just so that I'm on, like, I know what's going on here. So as of right now, Economic Vitality is getting applications for facade grants and they are approving or denying applications.
There's not been any since we last met like 3 weeks ago. Yeah.
Is it possible for the applications to go first to Vitality and then get approved the following week with Downtown Advisory Board? Or at least so that I'm happy to have Economic Vitality take that over, but I would love to see this stuff. And yeah, that could be me getting my butt to an Economic Vitality meeting.
Yeah,
But
that
as far as having, you know, like,
it either has an approval from the downtown board or at least an update from the economic vitality committee.
So it's Downtown Advisory that makes the final decision, is that right? Or
It's
Yeah.
in the committee that's made the final decision on it, but then, you know, the board meets the week following, so it's all included in the agenda packet.
we've approved facade grants in this committee.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Downtown was aware of it. We updated downtown, but we made the decision. So that's what I'm asking is.
Yeah.
Or perhaps, you know, from a just a judgment standpoint, let's say something comes to the Economic Vitality, a facade grant request that has there's more going on there, you know, and maybe community character would like to take a look at this before we make our decision.
Yeah,
I mean, but if it's something straightforward, you know, where it's a slam dunk and it's all within the guidelines written by the policy, which is well written. I mean, it's all right there. It's pretty straightforward. You know, I'm happy to let Economic Vitality take that over, but especially on certain projects that might be, you know, definitely be like, okay, this, you know, community character should take a look at this one.
sure, yeah.
And
And there's gonna be some,
for preservation should take a look at this one.
yeah, and yeah, any of them that are on Main Street have to be get reviewed by historic preservation anyway, because of the local historic district. They have to have a certificate
So-
of appropriateness anyway.
And this, I mean, again, not to lay the fire, but it has to do with oversight and design evaluation and approval. Is there any appetite with at least looking at or removing the painting on the sidewalks? that we, I mean, I couldn't tell you how many years it's gonna take for Mother Nature to remove all of that.
That's the
And
worst.
that
And it looks like.
And that was the worst thing ever.
And I think that, aside from the fact that like the initial design, if you could go back at it and look at it, but if you look, what I'm talking about is we look at what the condition of that art piece is right now, it is a detriment to downtown.
It is.
Okay.
That's.
So is there any appetite?
There-
Removing the artwork?
And
It'd be the process of removing it.
It's not at all what was approved by Downtown Advisory Board either.
But even aside from that, it's not holding up.
But that adds to a.
So,
justification.
and if we just say, well, we're gonna wait another 15 years, that's,
Yeah, I think that's a very.
you know what I mean?
It
and-
needs to be cleaned up.
I mean, if you look at if you look at the beeline,
Hmm.
that's held up pretty well. I mean, I'm just comparing the project.
Talking about the extra.
So instead of making it like not personal, obviously, but you could just say, we're not talking about that, we're talking about what it looks like
Yes,
right now.
yeah, it is. It's
And
sloppy. It's.
this is, this is rough.
Infuriating.
And I know a lot of people don't look down when they walk, you know what I mean? I don't know if people are really like, it's affecting their downtown experience, but, for me, it's the more you see it, the more you see it, you know what I mean? It's like, all right, well, this is not holding up well. And how many years is it gonna take for this to, because I think that was the discussion like years
Yeah.
ago. It's like, well, we'll just,
It'll-
it'll be 3 or 4 years and it'll be gone.
Downtown people about,
Well,
Can we consider having a pressure wash?
we tried to see how.
I would suggest first, attempting to raise volunteers with power washers.
See if it
All
works.
right, and go in and get it done for free, but,
City will
if
supply the water.
if it takes a month or two to get the whole thing done, so what? But if you power wash that whole section and have it not.
Are you talking about
City, I mean,
Street starting all the way?
Well, it would have
That
to
whole-
be from
that
there,
whole
yeah.
project, That whole project. What about this? What if the first steps is, what if we, I guess this committee, approached the artist and said, listen,
I think we just need.
no,
no,
no.
no. I'm just trying to be Mr. Nice Guy,
That was, what was approved was completely ignored. And even the way it was put down was not.
Yeah, there were mistakes made and we learned from it. We need to be more positive about checking and making sure that what somebody was told they could do is done.
And I'll
It's
take.
it's past that point, but that's what we need to work on. But I don't think going to the artist is good because this is better just that the city says it's not staying the way it needed to look. It doesn't say anything to the artist, what she did or didn't do. It just is, let's blame it on the city. They think it looks, it's okay, but
100% my fault, and
I don't think we should go back to the artist.
Give her a power washer. Power washer and get her to work.
There you go. I'll do anything to not have to have this conversation ever again.
Power wash. Another takeaway from streetscape, remember before streetscape, we were talking about the city like really, really needed a power wash the sidewalks. Remember on Seventh Avenue, like we were gonna buy a couple machines and all that
Main
stuff.
We have our downtown maintenance
Get rid of
crew,
the paint.
Gum.
the,
We don't have to do that because we have a new site.
Just
That's the
cleaning
point of my stupid story.
yeah,
So what you're saying is instead of city staff doing this, it's private citizens or.
Maybe the Friends of Downtown
Yeah.
people can volunteer.
I just would, I hate for WLS to come out and be like, city staff is removing artist work and, like the whole visual, like, so the.
But that's okay because you just say.
Blue Ridge Mountain thing, that's held up pretty.
That was.
You're just talking about the squiggles? Yeah.
No, what happened after that, which was well-established, well-defined artists, that was all well done. It's once they came back and said, we want to do a trail from Main Street, and I think it's over by a third of Main Street down to King Street to match up with that. And that was kind of
It's rough.
artists and maybe children, I don't know, just painting acrylic paint on the sidewalk. And
It was based on the book.
it was her private book
It was
that was
based on-
not supposed to
Yeah,
be.
so that project had nothing to do with the beeline.
so y'all are just specifically talking about the extra part.
Yeah.
Right, from Third Avenue down to where it meets.
Yeah, because even where there's a section under the bridge on Maple that's kind of deteriorated some, but I don't feel like it's bad there. I think that's fine. It just-
Minority voice, like, I don't mind it. I know that that's, it's not high art, of course, but it says that this place is lived in, that there's kids here. That's what it says to me. And yeah, it's rubbing off. It doesn't look great, but
Well, and it still goes back to when it was proposed, it was
That's fine.
defined what was acceptable.
I didn't see any of that.
And it was, the artist chose to do what she wanted and never even paid any attention to what was voted on by the downtown advisory.
If the Blue Ridge Mountain Range, if those two were just swapped over there, like, I think that's what, I like that, I like that idea and the bee thing. I like those concepts. And like, if those are just like closer to downtown, I think it would be
Yeah.
an asset
I
to
think that's
downtown.
an important conversation is that we're looking at, you're talking about sidewalk painting and stuff.
It's a good idea.
It's a big difference. I mean, the animal track project, which is a totally separate project, that's what we're talking about here is the animal track thing. And it's also hasn't held up. It hasn't, so.
The mountain scene and the honeycomb and the sign language was all part of an AARP grant that we had to spend in order to get it.
It looks,
And it was well-defined and well managed.
it looks,
And it came out,
Obviously,
beautifully,
yeah.
yeah, and this one was like kind of didn't quite work.
I don't have the context on it.
I'm not suggesting this is a priority issue, you know what I mean? I just wanted to start the conversation.
I
It
see.
does.
I think
And with-
it's been there for enough, and we had said that it was kind of a temporary installation anyway, and so I think if we can get a volunteer group out to
That time has passed.
that, we need to have a communication
If
together.
the city would
Yeah.
allow
Yeah,
volunteers to work on the sidewalk, and they should, but
yeah,
Yeah.
don't just come, I mean,
it could be a pushback. I mean,
it should be fine, yeah,
I'll volunteer 100 feet right now,
yeah,
right? That will take,
Don't arrest me yet.
that'll take more than a day.
Yeah.
To get up, but,
Yeah.
yeah,
okay.
I think that's the way to at least attempt.
John has a,
If we fall short, then the city can come in and help us, you know.
yeah, Jamie, we have a pressure washer.
Well, maybe there could be one person from
John could do it.
the Friends of Downtown that could kind of like head that up to know who's doing what section and
Yeah,
and all
Yeah.
of that.
I think that's great.
Um,
And I would imagine too, you want to have some type of support with just, the public. I would imagine you're doing this in the daytime where there's pedestrians and all that stuff.
Oh,
So,
to say it's disintegrating, it needs to be clean.
Right.
It all requires water,
yeah, that's,
so that's, that's
City has to provide that.
the key.
I might make a suggestion. We did a neighborhood thing with pressure washers and,
Just have an overall cleanup.
well,
You gotta provide-
but when we did it in our current neighborhood, not everybody uses the same head and understands the same way to use a pressure washer. You can actually do a lot of damage if they're not doing it correctly.
Mhm.
So if you chose to use volunteers, you would need one person overseeing it that makes sure that they're not etching the sidewalk.
Right,
Yeah.
It will happen.
yeah. It can't be like a
We were
free
doing
for
it,
all.
wasn't pretty.
I'll talk with Public Works on that, because there's also a section of sidewalk on Main Street that right after the hurricane, we had a person who,
Oh, yeah, wrote all over it.
yeah, and some of that's still not fully
Yeah,
gone, and it was some weird stuff.
yeah.
so like spray paint?
No, they wrote words and.
Yeah,
sign language
and they
some
didn't,
kind of
it was,
weird-
they had chalk, but then there's still parts of it that they used something else.
It's like black.
That's not, that's still, you can still see it some over by the, by Wine Sage in that section on Main Street there. So it might be just an overall
Clean them up.
Clean them up.
downtown cleaning up initiative that Public Works and their downtown group can help with it, but maybe if we can combine it as a volunteer thing, that might be a freshen up initiative.
Public Works has done a good job in the past of keeping the graffiti down too.
Yeah.
Alleyways and stuff.
Yeah, okay. So,
Exciting meeting.
public art next steps.
I will be happy to put together a couple of the resources. I even have a green paper that I can't remember where I got it. That says, where is it? I was just reading it. It's all about a public art.
If we can send it all and I can do it as like a Word document that people can add and make their own comments in together. And then I don't think you really necessarily would need to meet then next week. And then it can be to where people can provide their own feedback and document with a deadline for it. Maybe like a week before the next community character committee. So then I can take those comments and kind of put it together as something.
Yeah.
For it. Okay.
Great.
So we're not going to do a meeting next week? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's the American
We're
for
all
the
gonna
Art
get it.
Public Art Network
Do it.
Council, a green paper on why public art matters. Anyway,
Yeah, so if you want to send it off to me and then I'll combine it to an editable Word document that people can, that you can add their feedback to it.
Do you have both? Do you have the links in the email I sent you this morning for 2 of them?
Okay. Fifth Avenue.
Seventh Avenue open.
There you go.
Yeah.
Me?
Oh, since we last met, just a couple of things, or let me, I've got you have the agenda diagram. Yeah. let me put it up.
it's yours.
No, that was.
I gave it to you.
Yeah.
So, so I made a thing of what the closure, I should have printed it.
Well, if anyone got the email that Lana and I sent out, you got it.
Oh, okay.
Attached.
So
It's on that email?
It's attached.
Yeah, okay.
So basically, for the ones who weren't with us last time, so the farmer's market on that day on May 3rd will shift to cross the street here. So that way the farmer's market the vendors who want to stay through the rest of the day, most likely just the craft and artisan vendors, that none of the farmers are going to want to stay that long, will be able to be set up during this time. And then, so I've measured out the spaces here. These are 20-foot spaces, so they could essentially be divided into two if needed. And Linda and Lana had sent out something, just kind of a save the date for our 7th Avenue email list, because we talked about inviting other businesses that are outside of the,
Those would be tents or white.
it's to be, it could either be tents or it could be that, like, say, Art on 7th, Playwood, Marco's, this area, they might just want to have like tables expanding their dining out kind of thing. It'll still allow access to the parking lots. And then, so, we've been talking with, Diane about the Artscape reveal. And so Diane and I just met last week to try to see if, because where I was struggling with figuring out is if we have music going on, how the Artscape reveal, because flow of an event, music, Artscape reveal, music wouldn't really necessarily work. So what we're trying to see is if we could possibly partner up with the Rescue Mission Space to have
Inside the building?
either inside and then have the steps,
Outside.
those steps to the reveal outside, but then the inside could have where some of the artwork could be as a pop-up type of thing. And so hopefully that can start a good partnership with that.
I have a
space.
call in Tim.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, Phil and I talked
Oh, good, good.
About,
last week about the,
Yeah, which,
he's got a relationship.
I think it's a good idea.
yeah, then if we can have a good start with them and that space with the event of a good partnership, then that could really be a positive thing. And the little raised stairs there is perfect for a little, like an outdoor tiny little stage.
Mhm.
And so then the music would be here, and I've been working with the police and ABC about doing our having a Southern app and guide on set up beer here.
Will you be using,
Music where?
Oh, bring in a little stage.
Oh, back there, okay, yeah.
will you be bringing in volunteers from Friends of Downtown?
Yeah, not for, so what my goal is for the beer is to just have the breweries handle their own. So then that way we don't have to deal with cash or anything like that. Just let them do their own serving for
Has
it.
anybody talked to the breweries yet?
I've talked to Guidon, I haven't talked to Southern Ap yet, because I'm still just trying to figure out the permitting and everything.
Yeah, I talked to Kelly about it.
Okay,
I said, this, yeah, I gave her the heads up.
yeah, okay.
She seemed like they would.
Do you have a bunch of Seventh Avenue giveaway stuff that you bought during?
Yeah, we've got some, and then we'll be able,
Like, You're wearing one right now, as a matter of fact.
yeah, we've got buttons, and then depending on our budget, we can order more. We've also, Steep had talked about with Cat Williams about performing, and so possibly as them as kind of a earlier in the day, and then a band is kind of like headliner for the second half, and then at, I think it was 2, having that between like 2 and 2:30 being like the ceremony, like where we cut the ribbon and have a little, to do with it.
When would the art reveal be? Is that on this agenda?
What we're looking at, was it after or before? I can't remember now.
After the ceremony.
After the ceremony.
Ceremony.
Yeah. mhm.
Before music starts?
Well, no, the music,
Kind of simultaneously.
yeah.
Because the music, I mean, for the most part, music isn't necessarily like, it's not gonna be a crowd standing at the stage, like a Rhythm and Brews type of show, just with, it'll be more of like a,
Background music?
Ongoing.
yeah, I mean, it'll be a good band, but it won't necessarily,
Main attraction.
I wouldn't see
How
it.
much people in chairs sitting in front.
What's, I wouldn't.
Well, if,
Maybe.
I'm working on it right now. If we get a site, brother, there's gonna be a bunch of people standing in front of the stage, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
it's just the case,
so-
We could push the stage for people to sit there.
Yeah,
I mean, I've been to street festivals where the band is just like that, like in Folly Beach, for instance. And a lot of people just bring their chairs with them
Yeah.
and set up right there. They'll go look at stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so we'll have to look down at kind of the specific layout and where the stage can go to see if we do need to have some extra room for chairs to come in. There could be a good amount of room there.
And I see the red lines. Is that heavy duty barricades to keep any cars from driving through?
Mhm. The one thing that we'll have to figure out with our staff and police is how to secure this space. Because that's a really wide space.
Shack lot?
Yeah, because it would allow vehicle access. There's a lot of room for that we'll have to figure out.
Right.
It's all fenced out.
Right
It's
now.
fenced off now.
Yeah,
isn't it?
But it won't
It
be,
won't be.
They're gonna be open by then.
yeah.
Is it actually gonna be a chicken shack? Is that?
no,
What is it gonna be? Do we know?
A restaurant.
American Bistro.
Oh,
yeah, modern American, a young couple moved up from Florida. The chef, owner has a lot of experience.
Cool.
So it's gonna be comfortable, but it's gonna be definitely,
small.
I
I
would
think they're
say,
using the original building.
yeah, in fact, I got a tour with Brad and his wife are the owners. I got a little walkthrough last week and it's pretty amazing because I don't know if you all have been in that building. They've already transformed the interior of that building.
Oh, I've been in there back in the day.
In the front room, they removed the lower ceiling, so now it's open up to the rafters to that roof.
Exciting.
So,
That's cool. Really is.
So it is a very exciting project and I think it's gonna add a lot. And again, the operators have a lot of experience, which is.
It was good chicken when it was a chicken shack though.
I only knew it as a vegetable.
try. I try for the chicken.
One thing, so Terry's put together, and I can send this out, a sponsorship little package for this event. And so if, depending on how much sponsorship we get, that will tell us how much we can get extra swag and stuff to get out.
Businesses?
We've got Terry has some sponsors that we've already kind of reached out to. And I was planning to talk to our 2 construction friends of Seventh Avenue, just they would be interested in it. And we actually already have one, Noble Pest, that already responded to Terry that they already want to come in as a sponsor. There's 1,250.
1,500, 1,500 and 250.
How much are you trying to hope to raise? And not just whatever, but is there a minimum?
I don't think there's a whole, I was shooting for at least 4,000, which I think is gonna be pretty easy. There's, It's actually right, or if you're on campus.
Oh, yes.
It's right there.
What about Chris? I mean.
That was,
Carolina.
it was good.
Yeah, because I think it's right there, right below yours.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that's, so if you go to the second page, you can see the,
Who did this go to? You said you sent
We
it
just got it together like yesterday.
I sent it to 15 businesses.
Yeah, could we
With the
have,
second page, so Noble Pest Solutions has already come in as a grand celebration sponsor. Hendersonville Oil said that they, Bill McKibben said he would sponsor.
Horizon Heating and Air?
WAG is looking at it and YAM is looking at it. Caroline Erickson is looking at it. So I am pretty positive they will all come in. I believe they will all come in at either the community cheers or the grand celebration.
I think and that'll more or less cover our costs of anything that we have.
Yeah, Dunlap Construction said they might be interested in.
Yeah, I was gonna reach out to Dunlap and Chris, with that. It's just got put together recently, so we're
Terry, could
putting it all together.
copy of this?
Absolutely.
With the
Yeah.
diagram of the.
Yeah, we'll send that out. I'll send that. I was trying to get information with the diagram out to y'all before, but I was wanting to figure out the stuff with Artscape, so that way we get a good schedule put together. And I think we've got that pretty close, and I'm really excited about that.
So just so you guys know, when we had our little side, so some of the people weren't at that meeting, when we
The
had our
Seventh
little
Avenue
small
celebration.
Seventh Avenue meeting, we talked about, basically trying to keep vendors and things like that, just from the street and district area. So.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, so Lana and I volunteered to try to like contact some of the local people,
Who's
so
Lana?
that's Lana. Oh, Lana.
Alana from the
Lana's
pasta, who's
Yeah.
in Italy right now, yeah.
Yes, so we sent out just basically a one-page, save the date. You know, this is going to be happening type of thing, and then we thought we would follow up as we get more details and get it more defined.
Yeah, and I'll put together a form, that way they can fill it out and it's all
Maybe
put in.
recycles, they're on,
Mhm.
Locust, but maybe they'd be a sponsor to point out.
What was the pushback?
Really, I mean, you saw that one thing, but that was it. Nothing else.
Is that a local business?
That's a local business owner,
A building owner.
down on,
Locust?
yeah, down on Locust, closer to, where the old Coca-Cola.
She just decided to respond back to everyone with a,
She didn't like the fact that the streetscape hasn't gone down Locust Street was the bottom line of it.
Oh,
And, you know,
Like Coca-Cola?
exactly.
Well, if this individual was involved in what's going on, they would know that
Yes,
that
they-
was in the plans.
they-
The only reason we didn't do that is because of the budget, and it's still gonna happen. It's just.
It wasn't
it's
the plan for
yeah.
phase one ever,
I,
to go all the way down.
Not all the way down, no,
No,
but more than what, yeah, more than what we
it
did.
did, but that was not phase one.
I sent her something privately that was saying that I hope she considers participating.
Good.
And left it at that.
you didn't.
I wrote something that was, and then deleted it before. So, yeah, that was just like, come on, trying to keep things in a
People
positive.
know down Locust that there was another phase, is that what you're saying? I didn't even know there was.
Not.
No, I didn't
I
even.
thought there was.
Well,
Originally, there
Phase
were-
one
there
was to
were
go
many
down,
phases, but phase one was only gonna go to Track
it
Street.
was gonna go to, right.
And-
Actually, I thought it was gonna go to Bearcat.
I think we might have had some initial drawings for
We had
it.
initial drawings, I think those.
That might be a future project too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
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 but initially the intention was to
You're
take
right,
it down to
it might have.
Bearcat.
and then we
And
pulled it back to Track.
The
and
only
then
reason we pulled it back was because of
to-
the money. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just,
And then we pulled it
but
back,
initially there were, the drawings did include Locust down to Bearcat.
yeah.
and
There was like a pedestrian plaza there and brickwork and all that good stuff. Sidewalks would be improved and new lighting.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, obviously that will be addressed in the future.
and that's
Yes.
all a part of the above the mud grant application that they're working on submitting, which, is all dependent on the federal government. But if we get it, then that could complete the streetscape project and connect to the Coosa Trail and the Aqualaha Greenway.
So I noticed you have on here the Depot Plaza. Do you have any updates about that?
Additional and future goal.
I'm looking, yeah,
Yeah, that would be a next step with
I
this.
mean, I'm sorry, was there anything else on Seventh Avenue that we wanted to talk about? The party?
Hopefully by next month, we should have.
I think we got a good jump on it.
detail.
Can you work with the weather? Make sure it's good.
I know, that's, yeah, we don't have anything for that.
And that's just what we've got for future goals and priorities. We've got it in our CIP for the city for several years down the line as far as updating the depot.
What was the budget?
Restrooms.
What was the proposal cost for that?
It was, so the basic proposal cost was, like a rough estimate was for the cover, I think it was like 100,000 because it would be redoing the roof, which is, the roof's, I think, 7 or 8 years old anyway, so it'll be able to be combined with that. But I think we need to have some more detailed look at it to where it can be that public restroom update, which we don't have estimates for. Because if we're doing all that, we might as well do it to where it's facilitating the upgrades on the interior of it too. So that's, it's in our CIP, but it's been back some because our budget's been tight. In general. About that. That's kind of a next step look, and once we kind of get this public art side of things, one thing that this committee, as we're looking at the fundraising side of things for public art, that can also be something that a capital campaign for the depot could be a part of this committee too, because I think that's pretty fitting on the public space.
Yeah, I do have one question back at the depot. That yarn project, which was really great, why didn't it get to stay longer? The trees, remember, they were covered with yarn, with,
Because it was just.
They don't.
had it already just.
And the tree board,
Looked terrible.
The tree board said that it was bad for trees?
Yeah.
Okay, just wondering.
I don't think it was ever meant to be more than a.
it's, temporary.
It was, yeah, it was very temporary.
Yeah, but they call it yarn bombing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, folks, is there any other topics, any new business? Or past 10 o'clock?
Who's the trip?
Do we have anything on that, Amy?
No update other than, we've submitted or about to submit, I can't remember the deadline for the Above the Mud grant application. That's a federal raise grant. And the Coosa Trail, they got pushed back because of hurricane damage. I think they've said summertime is when they're looking at having the phase 1 of the Coosa Trail finished. So that's all about.
We have a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
It was a lively conversation.